we're talking about living single for the third week in a row. Yes. So I hope you're still with us.
Woo!
Natalie, hi.
Rebecca, I'm so excited that we're still talking about living single.
We're so pumped about this show. I'm really glad you are, because when I started watching it and I told you to start watching it, and I kept saying, Natalie, watch it. And you were like, all right. I was like, you don't even understand. Like,
I did not understand.
So good.
Yeah. I watched one episode when you told me, and then I was like, oh, it's good. And then I'm like, oh, I'm watching something else. Oh, and I'm doing things. I'm like, oh, okay. And then I'd watch it at the gym, and I was like, oh, it's kind of funny. Well, then I still had cable at the time, and I was like, oh, look, it's on randomly on BET, so I'll just watch it if it's on. It's like, okay. And then I'm like, oh, wait, this seems like I'm going to have to follow from the beginning. So then I was like, I went back to the Hulu, and I was like, by the way, full disclosure, I was also having Hulu issues at the time, so I thought it was actually my Fire Stick. Got a new Fire Stick. Solved all my issues. It kept it glitched out on me. So then I was getting, that's another reason. I just remembered that why I wasn't in the beginning watching it, and I was getting mad. And that's why I was trying to DVR it on TV, and then I got all mad, and then finally fixed it. So glad I did, because this show is so amazing.
It is so good. And because it makes you care about the characters. And I was realizing when I was doing my notes for the show that I had turned it on my TV in my office, and I just had it on because I had already seen the episodes. But I was still laughing because, and the first time you watch some shows, the first time you watch it, you laugh because it's new and it's funny. And then you watch it in reruns and you're laughing at the memory of it being funny.
Yeah.
And that's a good show.
And that it's still funny.
Right, exactly. You're not like, oh, grown, I already saw this. It's not funny anymore.
And it's even better because you're anticipating the funny. Exactly. You're like, oh my God, this is going to be so funny.
Exactly. Do you want to talk about, before we talk about guest stars, which is what we're here for, do you want to talk about what is your favorite episode? Do you have a favorite episode?
Goodness.
Did I just put you on the spot?
You did just kind of put me on the spot. Well, I mean, we're going to get into this, but it's got to be, again, when characters get together after all the tension and the crazy. I will say this, though, too, because it's kind of both couples. The episode in the very first season where Overton and Sinclair kind of get together and they kiss, and I just love how when she goes to kiss him, oh, nuts, and then she kisses him, and oh my God, they're the cutest.
They are adorable.
And then but then they were both being told, girls and guys, well, hold on. You don't want to seem too into this. Right. Blah, blah, blah. And they always went to the farmer's market or something. So then they're both trying to wait outside the apartment. And the other one's like, oh, they're not there. And it's all like, wah, wah, wah. And it's at first I'm like, oh my God, this is good. They're going to miss. This isn't happening. And I got so sad. And I was like, don't do this. They're so cute together. And they instantly, then they all got together for a party. And the two of them were like, no, we're not doing this. I like you. Yeah. Boom, we're together. They were so cute. So I was like, okay, good. They didn't drag that out where there was hits and misses. But of course, Kyle and Max, I swear though, it was all the different episodes, because it was kind of like a surprise at times. But when they got together, just made me so happy. Because again, you saw it coming, and I'm like, when they first, especially the one we talked about in a previous episode where he kind of saved her from the burglar. And then, but when they're actually they're together and, oh, is this happening? Oh, it's already been happening. And it was you could just tell his genuine emotion, especially, and she's trying to fight it, but oh, but hey.
Yeah.
And then when they get back together again and they're hiding it, and then it's all of their stuff. And then in the end, even when he was getting ready to leave, and just and to be honest, it might be then Sinclair and Overton's wedding, might be because that, first of all, when they were all together, the girls were together and she was like, they were talking to her and they all had like and then this is my best friend, or like, you're my cousin and you became my best friend. I'm going to cry talking about it. They were literally like together and Sinclair was like, oh, woo, woo, woo to everyone else, even though I was like,
Right.
oh my God, this is
wedding.
the cutest. And sweet. That was the same episode where Kyle found out he had this job and he had already told Max and she was kind of like, okay, whatever, blah, 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 whatever. Right. And then he's mad. And then they're like, well, don't let that go, Kyle, da, 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 da. And then he goes and tells her in the hallway and he's like, Maxine, like, da, 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 da. And she goes, so you're going to go? And he goes, well, yeah, and great, whatever, life. And he walks away, she's like, I love you. And I'm like, what? And Kyle and Khadijah, what?
Right? Yeah.
And what? He goes, what did you just say? Huh? And she's like, oh. And then they like ended. I mean, I was like, what?
Those two, they got so into their like insulting each other and like fighting each other that then they felt like they had to protect themselves from each other. So they were always like denying their feelings.
Yeah. She 100% built the wall.
Yeah.
He kind of was always willing.
Right. But he was like, well, if you're going to you know, be who you are, then I'm not going to give you anything.
Yeah. Because even when they were like together and dating, he was always like, you just can't, give me any respect, can you? And he's like, she's like, oh, well, why are you gotta be such a baby? And then she'd insult him more. And I'm like, okay, this is still bizarre. But
there was one point where they were trying to be nice to each other, like they were being all lovey. And then he was like, this isn't working for me. So then they started insulting each other.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. I think those
it was a good balance though to have Overton and Sinclair, who are the perfect couple and love to do silly things together, and then those two who just can't stay together.
Yeah, that's true.
Because Overton and Sinclair, they love the same things, and they're always like getting frisky. Like there was the one where they were talking about buying a new mattress or a new bed or whatever, and he's like telling her all about it, and she's like, "I'll meet you in the bedroom." And then they run off.
My favorite is they would be talking about something. They'd be like, oh, what? Oh, look out now. Oh, hey, and they're just so funny. And then they'd sneak away to go to different places. And everybody's like, oh, you too.
I love it.
Oh my God, they were so cute. Yeah, I just think that was like my big thing. That kind of went into my whole emotionalness of Kyle and Max. And
it was a roller coaster. I think one of my favorite episodes was when they had the Halloween party. Oh. And Sinclair and Overton got so into the Halloween party. And they had, like, the whole episode, they had food-related nicknames for each other.
Yeah.
It just kept escalating.
Getting crazier and crazier.
That episode, I love that episode. It was so hilarious. And it felt like those two were ad-libbing. And like it and they were enjoying it so much, and they were laughing and like genuinely laughing with each other, and it was really adorable. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, you're right. Those two are so ridiculously cute. I love it.
And she appreciates him. She appreciates his handymanness, which is like what he wants in life, is to be appreciated for being a handyman.
Yeah, there was the episode where he quits being a handyman and he's like bartending. Yeah. And I think both Kyle and Sinclair like go to the bar and then they're just like, oh, the tap's not working. What are you going to do? And they're trying to get him to fulfill his destiny. And I'm like, it's just so cute. But you're right. They're the most supportive of each other. And there would be times where they'd have like little arguments, but very much like best friends and just being there, like thinking there was never like, oh, he's a handyman. Right. Or, oh, she, and neither one thought the other was dumb because they weren't dumb. They just had, that innocence. And it was like so cute. Those two were so cute.
I loved any episode where people sang. Like there are a lot where
yes. They
actually all had really good voices. One of my favorites was in season 5 when Khadijah dreams that they're in the 60s girl group, and then Sinclair is a Black Panther, and Overton has hair. He's like a manager. Or something.
He's probably more of like the casino owner kind of guy. Yeah.
And then Shaka Khan is in that episode.
Yep.
And that was a great one.
That was awesome.
And like everybody sings in that one, and they all sound really good.
Yes, that was amazing. And the one where the club was going to get torn down. That wasn't
I
the
think
same
that was
one,
the
right?
same one.
Was
I think
it?
that's why
Oh,
she
okay.
was dreaming about it, because they're like, there's a lot of history in this.
Yeah,
club
because I was thinking how like because Max becomes like the owner and Kyle is the busboy.
Yeah.
And that's why I didn't think it was
That's
the
right.
same one.
I don't know.
Oh, and now I have to go back and watch them because I missed them already. But like,
Was
yeah,
that the Prohibition one? Maybe that's what I'm
maybe.
thinking of.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Those are two different episodes.
They are two different ones.
Yes.
Now I want to watch both because that's when he was singing and he had always
Mm-hmm.
wanted to be part of that. And then like the club, they were going to
That's
get rid
right.
of the new club or something. And he,
Yeah.
Oh, that was so good too.
I love flashback. I love episodes where they get to like dress up and be other characters.
Yes.
So let's talk about guest stars, because there were a lot,
A lot,
and I didn't write them all down. When they go on a talk show called Delia, I don't know what it's called. We see Will Ferrell for like 15 seconds.
Yep.
He's one of the roommates from hell on the talk show.
That's right.
And after that episode, that's when Regine moves out and they interview for a new roommate who is Regina King.
Yes. Yes.
So, like, there are a lot of people on this show who
Yeah.
didn't have big careers yet.
You're right. And I didn't even write some of them down because of that. You're right. I was like I forgot that she was on there. And early on, Rosie O'Donnell was on.
Yeah.
And she's like was a good friend of Khadijah's, right? And then her and Sinclair were all like,
Yeah.
friendy at the office and getting in trouble and whatever else. And a ton of, I mentioned Isaiah Washington in a previous, because he dated Khadijah.
For a while, yeah.
Morris Chestnut was in the very beginning. He was gorgeous. And he was the upstairs neighbor who all the girls were in love with. And he chooses Khadijah. She goes on a date with him. And she's like, he did not stop talking about himself. She's like, yeah, I'm done.
So you went on a lot of bad dates.
Yeah.
Burt Ward from Batman, he was Robin and the old Batman. He and Dean Cain, who played Superman, were in an episode together as themselves. And Khadijah had found Dean's wallet.
That's right.
But she would only give it to him, but he sent Burt Ward to the apartment to get it.
Yeah.
And later she was like, no, I'll only give it to him. And he's like, oh, they always send Burt Ward. Which was like so random and hilarious.
That's so funny.
And then the group TLC was in Overton's Dream.
Yep. That was hilarious. Joseph Marcel, who played Jeffrey the butler on Fresh
Yes.
Prince, became like a butler for them at one point.
He was their housekeeper. They were like,
Yeah.
we're going to hire a housekeeper. And it was Jeffrey.
That was awesome. In the beginning of season 4, Flavor was bought by a corporate. They tried to have their, what was the name of their magazine that they tried to compete? Was it Savor or something?
I don't remember.
And so they bought out Flavor and they had new offices that kind of morphed into look the same exact look. But that helped things out or whatever. But Joseph C. Phillips was the guy and he was Denise's husband on The Cosby Show. So I thought that was funny. And he was so like the corporate-y guy. And then everybody was getting all this good stuff. And then Khadijah was like, oh no, nobody likes me anymore. And that was like a quick thing that didn't last too long. But I was like, okay.
Mario Van Peebles and Melvin Van Peebles played father and son in season 3. And they were both dating Regine. And at first she didn't know that they were like father and son. And of course, it all came together with a misunderstanding and a reveal. And it was so much fun. Vivica Fox was the namesake for my dashboard hula girl.
Yes.
Plays a gold digger who's marrying Heavy D, who was, he played Daryl, who dated Regine off and on. Like, they were childhood friends.
Yeah.
And they kind of dated a little bit.
Yeah. And then they kind of decided, we're really good as friends. So.
And he was getting married, and she didn't want him to marry Vivica Fox because she just wanted him for his money. And
they found Vivica like making out with the best man or something during that.
good
And
episode.
Regine was like the wedding planner, right? Or something at that time, or I can't even. Yeah,
Regine was because she didn't want to do the wedding because she knew what was going on.
Yeah.
And I feel like her mom was there.
I think so.
Because I feel like she was at the wedding.
Yeah, I think so.
Because the wedding was hilarious. There
Which
was
would make
a lot of
sense.
funny stuff going on.
Yeah, which makes sense if he was her childhood friend,
Right.
probably. Because then, that was. That was so true.
And TV's Joyce DeWitt from Three's Company.
Yes.
Guest starred as herself.
As herself.
I can't believe they did that. It was hilarious. It was like her ex-husband was in an acting group with Sinclair and kept stealing Sinclair's material.
And then played victim like, well,
Right.
my ex is crazy or something. And
she
they dug
comes
up.
in and it's Joyce DeWitt. And she's like, oh my
Joyce
God.
DeWitt. Oh my God, that's awesome.
That was so good.
I did have to say hotties Shamar Moore and Christoph St. John, who played brothers on All My Children, or no, Young and the Restless? Yeah, Young and the Restless. Were both on at different times. And Shamar Moore is gorgeous. They both are. But
there was no shortage
No.
of hotties
No.
in this show.
and several, I mean, what's his name? Super young too. Terrence. I literally almost said Crawford. That's the boxer that's from Omaha.
It's on your brain.
Terrence Howard.
Okay.
So obviously very famous now, has been in tons of things. He was on, and was he like younger, and he was dating one of the ladies, and now I can't even remember who he was. I feel like it was Max, but he was like so young or something. So he was on, and I didn't even write that down, but it just came to my brain. I was like, oh my God, so many people that were on here. Marsha Warfield, who played Roz on Night Court. She was the cruise director on their honeymoon.
Every sitcom has a stranded on a desert island episode, and that was when they went on their honeymoon. Overton and Sinclair went on their honeymoon, and they ended up like they were on the island, and Roz, whatever her name was like, do not miss the boat. We will leave without you. And so they did.
They did.
And Overton was like, I'll build you like a place to live and like whatever.
And they were definitely fighting because of it, which is funny. It was like, and then
Because they couldn't stop making out.
Yeah.
That's why they missed the boat.
They missed the boat.
And then they got back on the boat, and she was yelling at Roz, and she was like, you're a bad director, or whatever.
That was awesome. But I remember I was like looking it up to see who I missed. There was a huge list of
Eartha
people.
Kitt
So
was on there.
oh my God. Yeah.
Because I remember in the interview with Kim Coles, she was talking about how she's like, Eartha Kitt came on the set, and she was polite to the women, but she talked to the men. Like she was like, oh, hello, darling. Will you please help me to my seat and all that stuff.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
good.
Yeah, there were just so many. I was like trying to think. There were basketball players on.
Yeah, I was gonna
Grant
say.
Hill was on. Alonzo Mourning was on. Like and Grant was like in love with like Khadijah, and she broke his heart or whatever. And then he went on. And I'm like, oh my God, some of the stuff is just hilarious.
There was a party. I don't know if it was like Overton's bachelor party or something where like some sports person showed up and we were supposed to know who he was. And I was like,
yep. I feel like it was Deion Sanders. And he's,
no idea.
He's a football player.
Every time somebody came on and they were kind of stiff, I was like, okay, that's a sports person because I have no idea who they are, but everybody's cheering.
And they also don't know how to act that well.
Right.
They kind of work their way through it.
Yeah.
And then they're like, ugh.
Like,
Grant
right.
Hill was good though, because he kind of did some other stuff too. Well, and I think he was in Space Jam, but whatever. Too funny. Space Jam.
Oh man.
Hey, we could watch that and talk about it.
Girl,
Just kidding.
let me tell you a tangent about Space Jam. In 1994, I worked at Musicland, which was a Sam Goody store. And we had this, like, Space Jam had just come out, and we had to play it over the overhead speakers. Not the movie, but the soundtrack.
Oh, yeah.
Which features a lot of dialogue from cartoon characters.
Yes.
And so when you're busy, like with customers, you can just barely hear, but you can hear all the high-pitched voices. And
Yes.
I just have an aversion to that sound now of anything from Space Jam. So I think if I watched it, I would freak out.
Oh, that's awesome.
Maybe it's been long enough.
Yeah.
Maybe I've gotten over it.
Yeah. Maybe.
So we would listen to Space Jam, but we had to watch, because, they would tell us what we had to have on. We would watch Babe
Oh.
at the same time we were listening to Space Jam.
Interesting.
So I have seen Babe probably 36 times with no sound. I've never seen it with sound.
Interesting.
I have no,
So you have no
also,
idea what
Walk
actually
to Remember
happens.
I've never seen with sound.
Oh.
I really loved that job.
Interesting.
Despite having to watch movies with no sound.
With no sound. Interesting. Very interesting.
We also had a haunted Mannheim Steamrollers Christmas display, just so you know.
Oh.
It would just come on at random. So anyway.
Yes, tangent.
Sorry.
Sorry about that, y'all.
Sorry, we're not going to watch Space Jam. I mean, maybe. I don't know.
Have to.
We'll talk about it. We have no shortage of movies that we need to watch.
That's true. That's true.
We like to talk about who our favorite character is sometimes, but as we mentioned in the last episode, it's really hard to decide because at first I was like, okay, Regine is my favorite character because she's cool and she has like an awesome wardrobe and she's funny.
Yeah.
But then as it went along, I was like, Sinclair is my favorite. I love Sinclair because she is sweet and she's funny and she has a lot of good lines.
Yeah.
And then I was like, but now Max is growing on me. Because at first I was like, I didn't really understand Max.
Yeah.
I was like, so she's just here to come in and insult people and fight with Regine. But she was really more of a dynamic character than that.
Yeah.
So then Max was my favorite.
Yeah.
But also, Khadijah is in charge of everything. And she's like kind of a soft character, but like very strong.
Yep.
And both of the boys are awesome. And Overton is hilarious. And Kyle can sing. So
how can you pick? I know, same dilemmas. Again, I felt relatable like to Khadijah because I was like, again, we talked about she seems to be, I feel like I have to take care of everybody. I always feel like I have to take charge. She owns a business. So like so many things that I relate to. And I love like the character of Regine because she was so funny and she just has a certain dynamic also. Same thing. Sinclair is so sweet and lovable. I just want to take care of her. But I think for sure, I literally like fell in love with Max. And I knew early on, I was like, I think I'm like, she is like my favorite. Because at first it was almost like, yeah, some stuff didn't really make as much sense, or she would just kind of be loud about something, but then it slowly became her thing. And it just, I mean, all the stuff, he was just about freakish, sneaky, and just, she is so hilarious. Because it's like she could insult everybody, but she's also everyone's friend.
Yes.
And it's true. It was kind of like, and I think that relationship with her and Kyle just grew on me so much too, that I was like, well, I think this is, I mean, she's like my favorite, and like their dynamic is really what, I mean, it made me super emotional. We just talked about that part where like at the wedding when he was getting ready to leave, because when they were dating, like they got together and then they're dating and it was like, okay, they're just dating. Well, they'd get together and they'd all be in the apartment. So they'd be like kind of sitting on each other, like kind of hanging on each other. But there was never, or they'd be like, hey, let's go get dinner. Oh, well, whatever. Oh, you're okay. And then they're arguing on the way out the door. And you're like, okay. Even when it was his birthday and they woke up at her place. And, she's like, whatever, old man. And and it was just constant. It was never like, you never saw them being super cute when they were officially dating early on, whenever that was, like season 3. And I thought, okay, this is just interesting, but hey, it's real. It's kind of cool or whatever. And then they went back. So then they broke up and they went back to like we're still friends and now we're mean to each other again.
Yeah.
And then it was always like, you had perfection. So da 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 da. And they'd kind of dig on each other that way.
And in the beginning, I thought, like, when they got together in the first season, but they weren't supposed to be together, I thought, how can they sustain this?
Right.
Like, how can they get them together right now and then
make it
they
work.
hate each other?
Yeah.
So then we just have to see them hate each other for the rest of the series.
Yes.
But it did work.
And you spoil alerted me at one point because we were talking about it and you were like, Max and Kyle just got together. And I was like,
I said that to you.
Yeah, you did. And I was like, dang it. And I think what you said was, I think you thought I was already there or something. And you were like, oh, I'm right where they, and I'm like, man. And I was like, well, at least I know that's going to happen. And I'm like, okay.
Sorry.
And I was like, all right. Well, then when I watched, and then they broke up and I was like, okay. So they let that go through. And then now we're on the other side. Okay, great. Well, then when it was like revealed that they were sneakily seeing each other again, I was like, oh, dang. And they were super, they were a little more lovey-dovey then. It was very, like, interesting. And I was like, okay. Except they were secretly meeting at a hotel that they were all, same thing, back and forth, back. Oh, I'll be back tomorrow. And it was just so funny. But then that he's at her place, and then they'd be in the hallway. And it was like, okay, this is very interesting. So then when he got the job offer, and they went through that whole spiel, and he really wanted her, and then bought her a plane ticket. And was like,
make me mad.
We're going to go, you know,
mad.
and then she's like, we'll stay. And he's like, so then they fought about that. So that whole emotional thing at the wedding. And then when she was like, I love you. And I was like, what? And they go through that whole spiel. And then same thing, goes to the airport. And she's like, you're really not going to go, are you? And, you know, he's like, I'm really going to go. He's like, woman, get on this plane with me. And then she's just like, you know, I can't, you know, da-da-da-da. He's going to leave. And then she's like, you don't have a kiss for your girl? And I'm like, oh my God.
Why are you doing this?
And
Put
then,
your ego aside.
And that's when I read that he's not even going to be on the show. And I was like, man, that can't happen.
Yeah.
So then we go through the end, and then she decides she's going to go to a sperm bank. And I'm like,
weird.
This is interesting because you know how shows work. At least they do it on soap operas. You can like pretend certain time hasn't passed or whatever. They could have made it so that it had been for real.
Yes.
And I'm like, why didn't they do that? And you know, maybe that's weird because of his, in real life, his disagreement or whatever with producers. But she goes to the sperm bank, and then she, you know, finds out she's pregnant.
That felt like that was thrown in there.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, we got to wrap up the show.
Yeah.
Let's get them together. Let's force them together.
Right. And it was so weird because it's like, they're all talking about it. Then Overton's like, that's interesting because Kyle went to that, you know. Hey. And they go on and they find out, of course, that it's Kyle's. And then he comes back he's visiting family, comes back for like New Year's or whatever. So then they see each other, and he's like, oh, well, who, you know, basically he was all, whose essence have you stolen or something. And
that was great.
He finds out he's the father. So then they get to, you know, they're up on the roof, and it's like, they're just so, it's like back and forth again, all the different things.
She's mad.
And he was like, don't you know how much I love you? And then she said it back, and I was just like,
you guys.
Mother of God. And I was hysterical. I was like, and then they're all kissy, and then they're together. I was like, son of a bitch. I mean, sorry. I literally.
But they gave us the closure.
Yeah. So the last episode just made me, I mean, I was just crying so hard. Because one, I was like, I love these people so much. And now I'm going to miss them. And it's all crazy. And
I feel like if we had gotten a real last season, we could have worked all these things out more smoothly.
Yeah. Because it really was. It was abrupt and kind of cluttered, and yeah.
That's unfortunate.
Glad. And like I said, Regine ends up marrying her rich guy that she always wanted to, and then she just disappears.
Yeah.
She moves out, of course, but then boom, she's just gone. And that was kind of unfortunate too. So it's like
I rewatched the episode today where her rich boyfriend had a dog, and she hated the dog. She fed it chocolate because she didn't know they could make chocolate.
That was Christoph St. John. That was
That was hilarious.
And he was in like the dog would always watch them while they were in bed.
My God.
She was
and he's like, oh, the dog is in the hospital. And she's like, is he gonna die? And then he didn't. And she's like, oh.
Then she was gonna break up with him, and then she was like, well, I guess if like, then she finds out they think the dog's gonna die. She's like, well, maybe we could make it work. I'll be with you at least in your time of need. And then he finds out the dog's okay. And then she's like, okay, well, bye-bye then now, because I'm done with you. And I was like, oh my God, great. She's awesome.
That was hilarious. Well, before we wrap this up, I said we weren't going to talk about Friends, but we can address the elephant in the room.
Okay.
And that is that this show has been compared to Friends.
Yes.
Because Friends started in 94? Mm-hmm. This show started in 93. So there's been a lot of talk about like Friends was a ripoff of this show, or this show was a ripoff of Friends, which obviously it isn't because it came before. But like, I know they're the same type of show.
Yeah.
But they're not the same show.
No.
And part of the reason that like there was an interview with Queen Latifah about, how, it's not fair to compare them and whatever. Because Friends had this giant budget.
Yeah.
And Living Single was on Fox. And Fox only started in like 1985 or 86 or whatever. So it was a fairly new network. They didn't have a lot of budget. But also they weren't, like, everyone knew that the shows with black casts weren't getting as much budget as the others. So their budget was nowhere near what Friends was getting. Their actors weren't getting paid anywhere near what Friends actors were getting paid.
Yeah.
Part of it had to do with the network that they were on. But obviously a lot of it had to do with the essence of the show in general.
Yeah.
Yes, it's 6 people. It's 2 guys and 4 girls.
Yeah.
They live in New York in an apartment.
Across from each other, kind of.
Right,
and,
but they're all in Living Single, they're all successful. They're not struggling to get by. I mean, really, there weren't shows on the air when Living Single started about young people living without their families.
Right.
And like this friend group, there was Different World. Was like the first really show that addressed young people living independently of their families.
With like no supervision.
Right. And then Living Single came along. So I don't think it's a fair comparison to compare those two, but there obviously is a problem with giving a show like Friends more attention and more budget.
Yeah. And I think you're right. Having to do with the networks has a lot to do with it too. But, and there's just like a ton of, there's, crossover. I mean, I said that too. There's people that were on both shows, like the kind of characters who were just in the background. I wrote several down, of course, but nobody really cares about who these people are. But it's like, so that's also interesting to me. And you're right. I have watched, everybody knows I've watched Friends so many times I can recite it. I just never, when I watched Living Single, I didn't think of it that way at all, actually, of like a comparison to the two. And clearly it is very similar, but it just, to me, it's different. And maybe because I'm watching them in different eras of my life.
Yeah.
I watched Friends in the very beginning when I was young and have watched it over time. I watched Living Single now. I'm 45 years old. Like I have a different perspective on the world. And so to me, watching it was not to think it was the same and or different, but I mean, you can just tell there's things there, I'm sure, that people could compare.
But I think a lot of those are like more accidental things that are similar in everybody's lives. Like in Living Single, they're trying to show you different types of people. Like Yvette Bowers had said that she based these characters on different parts of her own personality.
Yeah.
And that's what makes a good ensemble cast, is that you have different types of characters, so you can have different types of stories.
Yeah. I think, when you have the writers, you start to watch it over time and you think of it that way, where you're like, okay, you can kind of tell they wrote people a certain way, and I'm sure certain writers think, I'm going to base this person on me. And I do like the way, like you said too, everyone is successful, and Friends makes it almost seem like, again, everyone's living in places that they probably can't really afford in New York on both shows. Because
I don't know. You could also say that Friends and Seinfeld are a ripoff of each other. Like,
right.
It's just, this was an era where we didn't need to have shows about families so much anymore, because the people making the shows were different than the people making the shows before.
Right. That's true. You're right. You think about that. We've talked about this before, how like the era, to me, in like the 90s in general, I mean, so many shows can even be similar. And I mean, we've watched Frasier, kind of the same thing. There's a family element there, but everyone's like a lot older.
Yeah.
So definitely more successful. But again, it's like that. It's the friend dynamic, the being friends dynamic.
Yes.
So it's
it's friends that are family.
Right.
Like friends become your family.
Friends become your family.
Yes.
And it's, as we say this, it's because the name of the show, Friends, is Friends. And that's the whole purpose of all of these things, is to show friendships and how they evolve and how you really do become family. So that's why I think this one is just so great, because you really did. Like, you just fell in love with every single person. And that's where I would compare it. Because I think the same, because I just love Friends anyway. But, like, I love all of those characters. They all have weird things where you're like, oh, I don't like this about them. But everybody on this show, too. You just really start to be like, you feel like you want to hang out with them. Yeah. And that's where I'd compare it. Where you're like, you get so invested that you want to hang out with everybody.
And the humor in the beginning is based on jokes in the moment, but it becomes jokes based on you knowing who these characters are and people doing things out of character.
Yeah.
Just like Friends.
Yeah.
But, yeah. I think you can like both the shows independently. I don't think you have to be on one side or the other.
I don't think so either.
But I can definitely see where the cast and the creators would feel kind of jilted.
Slighted, yeah.
Watching Friends become the phenomenon that it became.
Yep, that's true.
When Living Single did it first.
That's true. I can totally see that.
All I have to say about that.
All I have to say about that.
Do you have anything else to say about Living Single?
Oh, man. I don't think so. I think we've said it all.
Oh, we said so much.
I know. Just love it. I miss them already. And yeah.
I know. I was rewatching episodes today. I was like,
this is definitely
can't
one.
leave it behind, but I got other stuff to watch.
I know. I'm always like, oh, man, I shouldn't be watching reruns of things. But sometimes it's hard. There are certain shows that do that where I can just be like, oh, yeah, turn that on and just watch it anytime.
And you feel like you know them and you definitely know their house now. Like, you know how I feel like I live in the Full House. I definitely know my way around the apartment.
Me too.
Living Single.
Exactly. Me too. Perfect.
All right. Well, if you don't have anything else to say.
I have nothing else to say.
How about Living Single? Oh. We are living single in a 90s kind of world. I'm glad I got my girls.
We're not going to rap. You guys don't want to hear us rap.
No, you don't want to hear that. All right. Okay, well, keep in touch.
Oh, I'm sad. Sad to see these 6 go.
No, we can go back. We can go back and watch it all.
That's true.
Also, like, seriously, just Google the cast of Living Single, and you'll see like current pictures of them like together being cute and visiting each other.
God.
So
I can't wait. I'm gonna look that up. Love it.
All right, let's wrap it up.
All right, wrap it up. Clink. Clink.